Entrepreneurship is often shaped not just by individual ambition, but by legacy, values, and a deep sense of responsibility towards society. And our guest today comes from a family that has played a significant role in shaping industry, education, and social development in Maharashtra. And he continues to carry that vision forward through diverse business and community initiatives. Leading multiple ventures under Narendra Firodia Unicorp, he represents a new generation of leadership that blends enterprise with purpose, spanning sectors from business investments to social impact initiatives that are truly transforming lives at the most grassroots of levels. With that, it's my honor and pleasure to welcome a promising entrepreneur in the studio and a changemaker in his own right, Narendra Firodia.
Thank you.
Narendra, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in studio. For the sake of some context setting, the Firodia family enjoys a rich, long, historic dynasty and legacy, if I can call it that, within philanthropic and entrepreneurial circles alike. Obviously, the genes have passed on. Walk us through some of your early experiences or earliest memories of perhaps that entrepreneurial bug and how it's played out since.
You correctly said that, I come from a legacy where, I am the fourth generation. Though my great-grandfather was not an entrepreneur, but, he was a freedom fighter, he was a lawyer, and but third generation entrepreneur. And in my family, I have seen that, uh, business is not just authority, or, whatever you're doing is not just authority, it is responsibility.
Sure.
And I always say that, legacy is nothing but responsibility. And whenever we do something, or whenever, I was learning in my early years, I understood that, we don't have to look only at the profit part of it. We have to see what impact it will give to the society, and also what impact it will make to the people. So that was the philosophy I grew up. And as you correctly said, connecting it to the philanthropic work that we do, we are giving back it to the society, at the same time creating values for the people.
Well, sir, the desire to give back and that sentiment is typically one that stems later in life, irrespective of one's personal background. So, is there a particular moment in your past or in your history where you experienced kind of a pivot or a switch of sorts and that became top priority?
Uh, not really any specific movement, but as I said, I actually grew up in a family which is more to the Gandhian culture, and one thing of Mahatma Gandhi that really, one quote of Mahatma Gandhi that I really live by is, be the change you want to see in the world.
Right.
That is the quote that I really live by, and that was the moment, or that was the quote I think has inspired me a lot. So, whenever you want to do something, and if you are first to doing it, then you have to start with yourself. And so that is, what I learned, and that is what I live by.
And sir, what's also so intriguing about the Firodia family and your background in particular is essentially all of the push for civic engagement. And I think that's, very much demonstrated by way of the contributions in the development of what was formerly known as Ahmed Nagar and is now coined as Ahilya Nagar. Tell us that story. And clearly I'm eyeing your vest right here, which says I Love Nagar. So there's a larger narrative to this. Please walk me through it.
So you correctly said I come from a place called Ahilya Nagar. It was formerly Ahmed Nagar, and it is a very rich in history place. It has got a history of over more than 530 years or 540 years. In fact, it is one of the place which had a birth date, when the city was formed. So it was formed on 28th of May 1490 when Ahmad Shah, set up the city. So very few places in the world have a birth date.
True.
And I came from a place which had a birth date, plus a rich and historical place, a lot of monuments. And if you see, we have that culture imbibed in our city. When you come from a smaller place, we are very closer to the proximity of Pune and Aurangabad. So now it is Chambhaji, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, or
right
Nasik.
At the heart of Maharashtra.
Yeah, we are exactly in the center of Maharashtra. But if you see, people always look at the developments of other cities. We feel that Pune is going ahead, Mumbai itself is a metro, and Nasik is going ahead. But at that time, I understood that people are, not, they are just not happy with the city, or they are not just happy with whatever is happening in the city. So I thought, let's give them a reason to love the city. So we started I Love Nagar, and the tagline says your love for your city. And from there, the journey of I Love Nagar began. It was early 2015 when the social media was also catching up. So we started with a Facebook page because you can anything you want to do. I think three things are very important for anything that is content, commerce, and community. So we started with the community, and we started I Love Nagar as a community. Slowly and steadily, as tech progressed, so we made it in an app, and I can say that it is one of its kinds app in India, because it is not just like an yellow pages, it is not just like we are providing you with the history of Ahmednagar or news. We have something called the civic issue, where you can connect with your municipal corporator, send them your problem. Like for example, there is some lights are not working, you take the picture, you post it on our app. We have a dedicated team which will follow it up from his concerned corporate and get it done.
So it's a two-way dialogue.
It's a two-way dialogue, and it is also that many times we feel that how do I reach my corporator, or how do I reach certain government authorities?
Sure.
So there has to be a bridge. So we are like that bridge. I Love Nagar is a bridge from the citizens to the governance. And at the same time, many times we feel that some things should be done automatically. But I think in today's world, and using the right technology, you have to reach that right person.
Absolutely.
So if you see that today, you can with the help of social media, and it's just one connect. So we connected the citizens of Ahilya Nagar to the governance of Ahilya Nagar, and I am really happy to say that the percentage of the completion are more than 77%, or 77 to 78% success rate is there.
Well, I think two aspects are incredibly phenomenal about this initiative. And one is that you are giving civilians a voice.
Exactly.
And secondly, it's evidence that that entrepreneurial spirit is not limited to the major metros in this country. It comes from all corridors of the country. So to what extent, I have to now ask, is this a model that you are now perhaps looking to replicate or emulate in other regions?
The initial plan was the same, that we replicate it to I Love Pune, or I Love, but what is more important is that there should not be any political connect to it.
Sure.
Many times when I started I Love Nagar, and most of the people thought that this is something to do with my political ambition, or something to do that this is the stage where I want to get into politics.
It's natural to have those hesitations.
Yeah, that would be. But I had made it very clear that this is nothing to do with any political platform, or nothing to do with any specific political party. But the idea was always to get into all the cities. Though we have not yet gone to any other city except Ahilya Nagar. There were a few politicians who came to me and said that, we can take this to this place.
Sure.
But as I said, our philosophy was very clear that this will not be any political platform.
Sure. So
this will be a platform by the people, for the people, of the people. Yeah.
So it's aimed at essentially, upward mobility and social impact, irrespective of political orientation.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's so phenomenal. And many entrepreneurs today, they have the most respect for their fellow colleagues who somehow combine social impact with success. But it is all easier said than done, right? In your view, what makes that possible? What distinguishes that success story from the next?
See, as I said, I always believe that, you have to start somewhere. And if you see my Instagram bio also, it says social entrepreneur. And you have to, as I said, my family gave me the values that create that impact, create something which will, make people grow. And at the same time, there has to be a profitability access to it. Though I Love Nagar is a completely non-profit organization, it has nothing to do with profits. But when you do other businesses as well, there has to be both the angles. It is not just that you are just looking at the profits, but not the impact. And at the same time, you have to look at the people as well. So I think the most important thing is that people should feel that impact. And that is the differentiation I think I've been able to make in my entrepreneur journey.
Well, many entrepreneurs struggle with that same dynamic, in that, corporate growth is often seen fundamentally at odds or competing with social impact. All right. So for entrepreneurs that perhaps are facing that conundrum or find themselves in that dilemma, what words of advice do you have?
See, I feel very simply that do what is right. And maybe whenever, like you correctly said, in a corporate world, you can have a complete different set of mindset. The mindset is already different, but you have to connect the corporate to the social and to the people. So my advice would be, always think of that one thing, that what difference will my organization or my role make it to the people of my city, my place, or my organization. So, if you can make that difference, and even if it is a smaller difference in your organization, I think so, the smaller difference can make a bigger impact on people.
Right, that small piece of clarity that, you know, clues you into the big picture. Well, speaking of making a difference, I want to talk about the Asha Firodia Educational Foundation along with the Shantikumarji Firodia Memorial Foundation. Both aimed at completely different objectives, both making an impact. How did they originate? What were they designed to achieve? And how might you characterize your success to date?
So as I said, I come from a family which has been doing a lot of philanthropic work in Ahilya Nagar and around Ahilya Nagar. So I started the Shantikumarji Firodia Memorial Foundation in the memory of my late father. And this is a trust, this is a family trust which works on all the points, or in making that impact for everyone. So we support people for their education, because I think education is the core of everything. And once you have, because see, we say right to education, but you also know how depth, how deep it has gone to the people. But from our foundation, we make sure that we support people for education, we support people for sports. I am a very strong believer that if you can support sportsmen, you can build a very strong and healthy nation. So we have supported people in chess, and I am proud to say that Ahilya Nagar has, because I am very closely associated with the chess association. So we have our own grandmaster. Now there would be very few cities who have their own grandmaster, so we supported them financially. And I have seen that over the years, the biggest problem any sportsman faces is finance. Second was medical and things. You understand that people, though now the government has done a lot of things, lot of schemes have come up, but when we started this trust almost 20 years back, we thought that let's give back to the society. Let's support the people who are really not very fortunate enough with finances, or with other things. We have supported a lot of schools, we have supported a lot of disabled people, we have support. So our, we didn't had any single focus. So whatever good came to us and we thought that it is worth doing, we dived into it. So that was for Shantikumarji Firodia Memorial Foundation. We also got the opportunity that in COVID we served the people. And that was a time that people had literally lost faith in humanity. And we had totally, we were thinking that what next. When COVID came, everybody was, nobody knew what tomorrow will bring. So as a foundation, we did our best and supported people for whatever we could. The Asha Firodia Education Foundation, as the name says, it is in my mother's name, and she is the inspiration behind what I am doing. So we, this is specifically to education. So maybe from your nursery till your PhD. So we support people, and not only supporting them financially. See, financial support is very easy to get today. You have scholarships, you have government schemes, but what is more important is mentoring people. Sure. And in a place like Ahmednagar, so Ahilya Nagar, in a place like Ahilya Nagar, where the opportunities are less. People think that I'll have to move out, or what should I do next in my life. So we mentor them in their next phase of life, because the kind of changes that are happening around the education system, if you guide them well, I think they can do better in life.
It's so fascinating you say that, because this whole concept of a brain drain is very real. Losing local talent to so-called bigger and better opportunities. It happens within the country and an international level. It's absolutely staggering, right? So it seems like you're very much enriching the local community and doing your bit to reverse that brain drain. Now, looking at the Firodia family's network or ecosystem of business verticals, everything from ed tech to med tech seems to kind of be under one overarching umbrella. So as you were building the foundation of your career, How did you, as an entrepreneur, determine this is where my strengths lie? This is the direction where I can take forward and build a legacy of my own. And how might you guide another entrepreneur that's struggling to find that inner voice?
Uh, See, it's a very valid question, and when I started, maybe I have been working from last 25, 26 years now. The scenario was completely different then. I have a degree, a master's degree in finance. That time, you do an MBA and you had the top degree. Plus, when you come from a family which has a legacy and you have a legacy of its own in your city,
And the responsibility.
and the responsibility, and you have, so people think it's a very easy cakewalk, you just have to fit in there. I was very clear that that is okay, I'll take care of my family business, but I want to create something which will be really which are the new sunrise industries, and not limiting myself to do only one kind of work every day. So, I always say that, love your work and you don't have to work a single day in your life. And that is the philosophy I live by. And though you'll make, I always say that I have made a lot of mistakes, but I have learned from that mistakes and I have grown. So if you see the vast verticals that I've been working in, starting from ed tech to med tech to media to content creation to even sports management, to distribution of mobile phones, technology distribution, even investing in startups. So everything, so it came one by one, and as you said, I had that curiosity that okay, what's next?
Right.
So once you have fit in, or you have set one base in one business, what next? So that is what is also keeping me interested in working every day, and that was the philosophy. So someone who is right now thinking that what should I do, and how can I do, I think get in the field what you love. Right. And then you will have, and see, it is very important that if you are not liking what you are doing, I think then you are in the wrong space.
Well, Narendra, oftentimes on these, in studio discussions when we feature stalwarts, their success is what we put the spotlight on. But not often enough are their challenges or struggles highlighted. And I think a lot of learning comes from that era as well. So, if you wouldn't mind opening up as to some of the biggest challenges you perhaps faced and what you were going through at the time, how you went about overcoming them, and how you look back on those learning experiences.
Correct. I think this is very important that you learn, and I always say that learn from people's mistake.
Right. Rather than make them
Yeah,
all yourself.
exactly. And so one line, as if you when you talk, I say that when you lose, don't lose the lesson. What is important is that the challenges that you faced, or what challenges others have faced. Now, for me, when you come from I Love Nagar, it's a very small place for 6 to 7 lakhs of population. Not much of infrastructure was there. If I go back 25 years, even getting a internet line was difficult.
Right.
So that was a struggle that we started with. Then at that time, that was just the start of the .com era, and information was not on Google, or it was all in books or in travel, or you have to go to places to understand it.
Right.
So we have seen that era where from a feature phone where you just used to call to a smartphone today, which does more than what you can expect.
Or a landline, perhaps, before both of those.
Exactly, from a landline to a pager. If
Right.
you see, there was times when we had the landline, then we had the pager, then came the mobile with a 16 rupees incoming, 32 rupees incoming, outgoing.
Like a brick.
It was, and it was with a very few people.
Sure.
So that was one thing that technologically, when you are in a very small place, you are not very fortunate to get all these technologies very fast.
Not.
So, if Mumbai must have got mobile phones in 94 or 95, it came to Ahilya Nagar in 98 or 97, 98. So, you are still, but you have to understand where the world is going. So, the biggest challenge, one was the technological challenges. Geographically, even if you are rightly placed, but if you don't have the infrastructure, like see, Pune has grown like an education, because it is the biggest education hub, automobile and IT.
Correct.
Now all these three things, if you look at Ahilya Nagar, it's a very small place. So number one, the challenge is you don't have skilled people. So they will move on to Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, wherever they'll get the opportunity. So slowly and steadily you have to build to it. And as you know, as I said earlier as well, I was very curious to get into new things. So when we wanted to get into tech, or so we'll have to first find the manpower. And there wasn't enough manpower. So you'll have to, find them from Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore.
Entice them.
But I think COVID itself was a very big game changer for people to come back home, and the work from home has become a reality. Plus, the other challenges is that, I always feel that, most of the times, bigger opportunities comes to bigger places first. Like as I said, infrastructurally, a lot of places, a lot of things came to Pune, Mumbai, Chennai first. Then it came to other cities. The second was skilled manpower. And the third most important was, is your overall ecological system, is your, industrial system there to adapt these changes? Or can you set up, see, you cannot set up anything anywhere. You need to have the right manpower, right raw material, everything. So those challenges are still there. Even after, say, we are now moving in the AI age, those challenges are still there. But I feel most of the people feel that you come from a legacy background, you must be having, you don't have issues with finances, you don't have issues with other things, you don't have to struggle for that. But I feel the struggle is bigger there, because you have the responsibility to create more than what your ancestors did.
Sure.
You can't make it wrong, because people are watching you. And as an entrepreneur, you are bound to make mistakes, but there has to be some limitations to that mistake. So the struggle there was, to take calls which are appropriate, not to, haywirely take decisions and just go all out there. So, when people feel that you have a lot of money or a lot of, backup, it is not the place. It is still, I think the responsibility is more there, and there is much more to lose there.
Interesting point of view, certainly. And, I think I'm perhaps stating the obvious here, but Narendra, no one can succeed in isolation, right? Everyone requires a support system of some sort. So, who might you characterize as your biggest pillars of support or biggest moments of support that proved to be kind of a turning point in your personal and professional trajectory?
So, as I said, uh, my family itself, my family has been, there has been a series of entrepreneurs in the family, and that is one inspiration that you take. And when you grow in that environment where, you see how your grandfather, your father, your uncles work, you understand that where is the line, where is that box that you have to fit in. Then is, my mother is my biggest inspiration. On in all these years since I have been, growing, she has been the inspiration that, okay, you can go ahead and do. She is more inspirational for me because of the social things that I do. And she had a very clear vision when we started the trust in my father's name, that, it is very easy that people will come to you, but you should go to the people. You should understand where the problem is, and can we really think of a solution for it. My wife, who is actively involved in the foundation, she takes care of the education foundation, my kids. So, everybody. So, I always say that many people say that I am a self-made man, but I never feel that no one can be self-made. There are thousands of smaller hands.
Absolutely.
Even from your driver to your office assistants to everyone who is playing that role to support you. So in my life, my family, and as I said, we come from a Gandhian thought. So, that impact of Mahatma Gandhi's overall life was always there in the family. Then is my parents. My father was, my biggest is still my biggest inspiration, because one thing he taught me was, always be in the right box. And one advice that I always got from him was, do the things that will make you sleep peacefully at night. This is a very important thing. If you look at it today, can you sleep peacefully? Can do you have that, can you really at the end of the day feel that, okay, I have done my bit, or I have not done anything wrong?
That sukoon.
And sukoon ki zindagi ke liye, today peace of mind is the most expensive thing in the world.
Sure.
So I learned it from my father, my grandfather, my other uncles, and till today, been following that. So my mother, my wife, my children, my cousins, my friends, everyone have been very supportive. And as you have seen my journey, it has been a lot of things that I have do. So you need people who should really, push you up to the next level.
And Narendra, by way of closing comments, as you look ahead to the next generation of Firodians, if I can call them that, what's the legacy that you'd like to leave behind?
See, I always feel that legacy is responsibility. So, and giving back more than you can, and bringing that impact, and always thinking about your city first or wherever you are based. So, if I think of I Love Nagar, then I can make the impact. And also at the same time, if my people grow, if my city grows, I will grow. So I will like, my next generation also, or, my kids to also look at it in this point of view, that we have to make our city grow, and we have to leave more than what we had bought. So, they always say that leave more than what you had got. So I think that is the philosophy they should follow.
So Narendra, you have a firm footing in the startup, ecosystem. Tell us more about the type of startups that you typically back and your words of advice perhaps for budding entrepreneurs as well as flailing entrepreneurs.
So, I started investing back in 2015, being 10, 11 years. And so startup now itself is a very big industry, and, over the years now you hear this word from a lot of people. Uh, I have, invested in a lot of startups which earlier were like health tech, because I think impact of health tech will be for the entire world. And COVID taught us that, we need a lot of health tech in this world. Apart from it, there is ed tech. Apart from it, there is a lot of content creation, uh, and primarily in Marathi. I always feel that, content is driving the data. So today, if you're traveling from point A to B, you will either watch a reel, you'll watch a show, you'll watch a series. So content is something that is driving. I'm also very bullish on voice, because today, slowly and steadily, we are seeing people moving back to the old dumb phones,
Right.
or phones which have, less screen time. So I think audio will be something that will drive in.
It's the digital detox.
It's a digital detox, but at the same time, you want to consume the information. So audio will be big. And so while investing, I look at the founder. I look at what impact will that startup make to the entire ecosystem, and is it really solving any problem. So today we see a lot of people, or a lot of young kids, or young founders, when they come to me, and when I'll ask him that, okay, you are similar to XYZ, okay, there can be competition, but what impact can you make, or what is the difference? Most of the people don't understand the difference. So I think we are also educating them through all the channels that we use. What is most important, or what is I have found out in these days, is that people don't understand which place to get in, or which startup to get in. You heard XYZ is doing well, let's replicate it. But is it easy to replicate? Sometimes I feel that smaller towns like Ahilya Nagar have the opportunity. So if there is no, say, a food delivery guy, or there is no quick commerce, you can still start it and you can be number one there.
Right.
So that is where I look at. Secondly is my advice to all the young founders, or who are looking at starting their startup, is most important is you should believe in your startup, and you have to be convinced with your idea.
Right.
And I always say that in any startup, I look at three things: founder, founder, founder. So if the founder has the passion, if he can turn down the things. If he's not capable enough, he can close down the things. So that is something that I think my startup journey has been.
And given your growing footprint in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, what's your take on this whole artificial intelligence euphoria that now surrounds us?
So I think the next buzzword that we will hear for few more years is AI. But I don't think that AI will disrupt the jobs. To an extent, it will. But when computers came, people thought that now their jobs are at stake. But it made their life easy if you understood how to use it.
Right.
So I always say that AI will not take your job, but the person who knows how to use the AI will take your job. So you have to, up your game. in the AI industry. Learn all the skills, learn all the tools. And if you learn, I think the next phase will be people will be looking for, maybe there will be a CAIO, like a chief AI officer in every company, every organization. So I think there is a bigger opportunity there.
Well, thank you for sharing
Thank
that
you.
perspective. With that, this special episode of Promising Entrepreneur comes to a close. But it is indeed very inspiring to see leaders who are not only expanding business horizons, but also strengthening communities and creating a lasting impact in the process. With that, I'm Pooja Jain signing off. We'll see you next time.